out that the New York Times finally admits the truth about child separations at the border. And they report in part about this 1997 case in the Ninth Circuit. Mr. Trump's executive order, this is New York Times, would seek to get around an existing 1997 consent decree known as the Flores Settlement that prohibits the federal government from keeping children in immigration detention, even if they are with their parents for more than 20 days. Now, Jake Tapper and the clowns throughout the media said the president was lying when he said his hands were tied, that he couldn't just sign an executive order because of the law. This decree, this consent decree, Mr. Tapper and your ilk, is the law. All laws don't have to be passed by statutes. This is the law, a consent decree. It has the force of law. It's to be complied with as if it's a law. You mocked the president. You lied about the president. You owe an apology in the whole country, but of course you won't. So the consent decree is in there between the federal government and the people who litigated the case, and signed off as an order by a federal judge in 1997 that these kids cannot be kept more than 20 days in detention. It's the point we've been bringing up, the president brought up, Secretary Nielsen brought up, we've all brought up, which is why an executive order won't work. But they insisted on an executive order, like Schumer did another. All he has to do is sign it. So now even the New York Times recognizes there's a law. New York Times goes on. The order would keep families together, though it is unclear how Mr. Trump intends to claim the legal authority to violate what have been legal constraints, the law, Mr. Tapper, on the proper treatment of children in government custody, which prevented former President Barack Obama from detaining families together during a similar flood of illegal immigration 2 years ago. Oh, now the New York Times tells us. Now the New York Times tells us. Isn't that fascinating? Now that they want to challenge the executive order, demanding that the president sign an executive order, Schumer blocking legislation on Capitol Hill that would have passed. So now they go back to court, the left, the ACLU, the Democrats, you know who I'm talking about, and say, not only has Trump violated the law, oh, I didn't think there was a law, but now you got to let these people free, because these detention centers, I mean, they're like Nazi concentration camps. They're like Japanese internment camps. And no country that claims to be a constitutional republic can detain an entire family. They haven't done anything. We're talking about the children here. Children haven't done anything. Well, they wanted them with the family. You can't detain an entire family. Let them go. New York Times goes on. And the president could quickly find himself the subject of another legal challenge to his executive authority, much the way he attacked Mr. Obama for abusing the power of his office with an immigration executive order in 2014. Now, isn't that clever? So Trump, they're now saying, is violating separation of powers. Only Congress, ladies and gentlemen, can pass a statute. So when the president said, the Democrats in Congress, it's on them, they need to pass a statute, he was told by the demagogues in the media and the Democrat Party and the ethnic front groups, you could change this with a signature. What are you talking about? He signs it. Now they say, what do you mean you can change it with a signature? Aren't you familiar with separation of powers? Don't you know the law from 1997? I didn't think there was a law. Oh, there's a law. There's a consent decree. You can't do what you just did. Oh, isn't this clever, ladies and gentlemen? And all because they want more illegal aliens to come into the country unfettered so they can do another round of amnesty down the road. The Democrat Party. Who exactly does the Democrat Party represent? It doesn't represent blue-collar workers anymore in this country. No, it represents radical environmental groups that wish to shut down our assembly lines and our smokestack industries. It doesn't represent blue-collar workers. It doesn't represent union members. It represents big government. Well, big government gets in the way of the private sector, and if the private sector can't expand, well, then unions can't expand either in the private sector. Now, in the government sector, they're having a grand old time. Oh, yeah, they're having parties over there. Bigger and bigger and more powerful. We have it all figured out here. We've had it figured out for an entire week, haven't we, Mr. Producer? We know exactly what this is all about. The next round of amnesty. The Democrats don't want to fix anything. They don't want to solve anything. We've pointed that out time and time again. Care about these children? They cared about these children. They would have done something about it 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. Same with Jake Tapper and the boys and girls. They're frauds. Absolute frauds. That's what's going on. And so you'll want to hear your host tomorrow repeat all that, I'm sure.